Have you ever noticed how some people just seem to sail through life's storms, while others get tossed around by every little wave? What's their secret? It's not that they don't face problems. We all do. The real difference lies in how they react. Today, I want to share a story that completely changed my perspective on handling life's chaos. A story about a wise old master and his two very different disciples. In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills lived a Zen master, known throughout the land for his profound wisdom and unwavering calm. People would travel for days just to seek his guidance. He had many disciples, but two of them, Kenji and Hiroshi, stood out. Kenji was brilliant, quick-witted, and eloquent. He could recite ancient texts from memory and debate philosophy for hours. He was always the first to speak, always ready with a clever answer or a profound-sounding quote. Hiroshi, on the other hand, was quiet and observant. He rarely spoke in the master's lessons, preferring to listen and watch. While Kenji was busy impressing everyone with his words, Hiroshi could often be found tending to the monastery's garden, mending a broken fence, or simply sitting in silent meditation. The other disciples often whispered that Hiroshi was slow, perhaps not as gifted as the brilliant Kenji. One scorching summer, a severe drought hit the region. The streams dried up, the crops withered, and the villagers began to despair. The monastery, which relied on its small farm for food, was also hit hard. Panic began to set in among the disciples. During a morning session, Kenji stood up, his voice filled with urgency. "Master," he declared, "we must remain hopeful. The ancient texts say that faith can move mountains. We must pray harder. We must maintain a positive spirit, for despair is the true enemy. We must not let our spirit wither like the crops." He spoke beautifully, and his words were a temporary comfort to the anxious disciples. They all nodded in agreement, feeling a brief surge of hope. The master listened, his expression unreadable, and simply nodded. The next day, the situation was worse. The last of the water reserves were dwindling. Kenji once again gave a passionate speech. "Patience is a virtue," he exclaimed. "This trial is a test of our resolve. We must endure it with a calm heart. Let us meditate on the nature of impermanence. This drought, too, shall pass." Again, his words sounded wise, and many felt a fleeting sense of peace. But as the days turned into a week, words were not enough. Stomachs were empty, and the villagers were growing weaker. The morale in the monastery was at an all-time low. Kenji's speeches, once so inspiring, now sounded hollow and repetitive. He talked about finding water, but he never left the shade of the monastery's main hall. He spoke of helping the villagers, but he never walked down the dusty path to their homes. His actions were simply speaking. All this time, no one had paid much attention to Hiroshi. While Kenji was talking, Hiroshi had been walking. Early each morning, before the sun was at its peak, he would leave the monastery with a long, sturdy stick. He spent hours walking the dry, cracked riverbeds, tapping the ground, observing the hardy plants that still clung to life, and studying the old maps in the monastery's library. He didn't announce his plans or make grand declarations. He just acted. One evening, as Kenji was preparing another speech about the importance of community, Hiroshi walked into the monastery, covered in dust and sweat, but with a calm glimmer in his eye. He didn't say a word. He simply picked up a shovel and a bucket and started walking towards a small, rocky outcrop a mile away. Curious, a few of the younger disciples followed him. Then a few more. Soon, the master and all the other disciples, including a very confused Kenji, were following Hiroshi. They reached a spot that looked no different from any other patch of barren land. Hiroshi pointed to a place between two large boulders. He simply said, "Here," and then he started digging. For a moment, everyone just stared. Kenji scoffed quietly. What is he doing? Has the heat gotten to him? But then, the old master picked up a second shovel and started digging alongside Hiroshi. Seeing their master act, the other disciples hesitated no more. They grabbed whatever tools they could find and joined in. Even Kenji, feeling a bit embarrassed, reluctantly picked up a small spade. They dug for what felt like hours. The ground was hard and rocky. Blisters formed on their hands. But a strange thing happened. As they worked together, silent and focused, a sense of real hope, not the fleeting kind from words, but a deep, shared purpose filled the air. They weren't just waiting for the problem to pass. They were actively trying to solve it. Just as the sun began to set, Hiroshi's shovel hit something soft and wet. A small trickle of muddy water seeped into the bottom of the hole. A collective gasp went through the crowd. With renewed energy, they dug faster and deeper, and soon a small but steady spring of clean, cool water began to bubble up from the earth. They had found an underground spring. Cheers erupted. The disciples and the villagers who had gathered celebrated, splashing the life-saving water on their faces. In the midst of the joy, the master walked over to Hiroshi, who was quietly washing the dirt from his hands. He placed a hand on his shoulder. Then he turned to all the disciples, his gaze finally resting on Kenji. For weeks, the master said, his voice calm but clear, we have heard many beautiful words about patience, hope, and action. But words do not quench thirst. Words do not fill an empty stomach. Kenji, you can describe the taste of water with 1,000 wonderful words, but only action can bring a single drop to a thirsty man's lips. He then looked at Hiroshi. Hiroshi spoke very little, but his actions shouted. He showed us that true wisdom is not found in what you say, but in what you do. When faced with a crisis, the most powerful sermon is a helping hand. The most profound philosophy is a solved problem. That day, everyone learned a lesson that was deeper than any text they had ever read. They learned that you can talk about climbing a mountain all day long, but you'll only reach the summit by taking the first step, and then the next, and the next. So, what does this mean for us? Think about your own life. How often do we say we're going to start that project, learn that skill, or fix that relationship? How often do we talk about making a change, but get stuck in the planning and the talking? We become like Kenji, eloquent in our intentions but stationary in our reality. The world doesn't reward you for what you know or what you say you'll do. It rewards you for what you actually do. Your actions are your true voice. They are the ultimate proof of your character, your beliefs, and your commitments. When you consistently show up, do the work, and help others without needing to announce it, you build a legacy of trust and respect that no speech ever could. The next time you face a challenge, big or small, try being a little more like Hiroshi. Quiet your words and amplify your actions. Instead of talking about the solution, start building it. Instead of promising to help, just extend your hand. Because in the end, it's not the loudest voice in the room that makes the biggest difference, but the most determined pair of hands. Your actions will always speak louder than your words. Thanks for watching today. I hope this story resonated with you. If it did, let me know in the comments what action you're going to take this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that help us think a little differently. See you in the next one. Bye.